With a single pull of the lever, the man flooded the entire arena with water. Not only that, dozens of crocodiles were released, immediately attacking the people thrown into the arena, biting, tearing, ripping them apart. A Roman official sat on a boat watching, and while the brutal scene was almost impossible for us to look at, the spectators around him were thrilled. In the Roman era, this was entertainment. People were even forced to fight lions, just like the spectacle this man was staging. Before all of this, Kwame had been part of a hunting party, an extremely dangerous job where death could come at any moment. That day, he and his team were tracking a lion across the vast plains. The danger began when they slowly approached the beast. Experienced hunters could find the perfect position just by reading the terrain. They would force the lion toward a cliff edge, leaving it with nowhere to escape. Once the lion realized it was surrounded, one hunter deliberately exposed himself to lure the beast in. The lion believed the hunters were helpless prey, but it had no idea the real experts were still hiding in the shadows. As the lion charged, a massive net snapped upward, trapping it completely. Of course, the captured lion would be delivered to their employer. But Kwame had no idea his fate was about to change. While transporting the lion, he suddenly spotted his two younger sisters being taken away by soldiers. Not long before, his youngest sister had accidentally killed a guard while protecting their older sister from assault. For slaves, such a crime meant being exiled to a brutal labor island. Seeing his sisters taken, Kwame couldn't just stand there. He tried to help them escape, but with so many soldiers around, it was impossible. No matter what he did, there was no escape. In the end, after struggling helplessly, Kwame was captured and sentenced to exile alongside his sisters. Fortunately, their mother appeared. Using her last bit of wealth, she bribed a soldier to locate her children. But there was no time to grieve. She told Kwame of a plan. He had to prove he was a skilled fighter. If he proved valuable, they wouldn't send him to the tin mines, a place no slave ever returned from. He saw the massive men standing nearby and knew it was a terrible idea, but time was running out. His mother encouraged him, believing he could defeat all three. Just then, a soldier spotted his mother and dragged her away. Determined not to fail her, Kwame charged out, attacked the three giants, and defeated them all. A Roman officer who witnessed the fight took interest. He called Kwame over and asked why he did it. Following his mother's advice, Kwame said he wanted to fight in the Roman arena for the emperor. Hearing this, the officer laughed. How dare a slave make demands? However, the officer did need more fighters, so he agreed to take Kwame to the arena. Immediately, Kwame added one condition: his two sisters must come with him to Rome, or he wouldn't go at all. The officer noticed how young and attractive the girls were and instantly saw profit. Noblemen would pay handsomely for them. So he agreed to bring all three to Rome. Their mother smiled faintly at the result, though she knew the road to saving her children was still long. Very quickly, the three of them arrived in Rome. It was the year 79 AD, under the rule of Emperor Vespasian, also his final year on the throne. That year, Rome was struck by multiple catastrophic events. It was the height of Roman power, a rare period when the empire nearly unified all of Europe. The Jewish people were brutally persecuted by the Romans, leaving many ready to revolt at any moment. After Vespasian's era, the Jewish people would eventually regain independence, but these uprisings fueled deep Roman resentment. Vespasian also rebuilt the Roman arena, which became a center of violent entertainment for the masses. The bloodier and more brutal the spectacle, the more the people enjoyed it. The arena hosted betting, bloody chariot races, and the deadly clashes of gladiators, and that would soon become Kwame's future. His fate now depended solely on his strength. As soon as they entered the city, Kwame's sisters were taken to the market to be sold. Their mother quietly left, knowing she needed a great amount of money to buy them back. After parting with his sisters, Kwame was taken to the arena. There, the animal trainer saw the white lion. When the cloth was pulled away, he was stunned. He had never seen such a majestic lion in his life. It would fetch an incredibly high price. At that moment, the white lion looked directly at Kwame and growled. The trainer was puzzled. The officer beside him explained that Kwame was the one who captured the lion. It seemed Kwame was destined to remain in the arena. Soon after, Kwame was brought to the grand, massive stadium. Even though he had heard about it before, seeing it with his own eyes left him speechless. Inside, Prince Domitian, Vespasian's son, was selecting fighters. When Kwame walked in, they immediately looked down on the small-framed man. They were about to dismiss him until the officer told Kwame's story, the man who caught a lion and defeated giants. To verify this claim, Domitian ordered a gladiator to test him. In size and strength, Kwame was clearly outmatched. In the first round, Kwame was knocked down immediately, but in the second, he reversed the momentum and brought the big man down. In the third round, Kwame snapped his wooden sword underfoot. He preferred short blades. Domitian allowed the fighters to switch to iron swords, and the battle became truly intense. Kwame spotted an opening and defeated the gladiator, but just as he was about to strike the final blow, Domitian stopped him, clearly refusing to let himself be shown up. As Kwame walked away, a guard whispered that he seemed like the perfect recruit. Domitian insulted him, saying a slave from southern Africa was nothing but an insect. The insult enraged Kwame, and he shoved Domitian in anger. Yet despite his insults, Domitian knew Kwame's skill was undeniable. Kwame was purchased and added to the gladiator roster. Now officially a gladiator, Kwame trained alongside the man he had just fought. The fighter treated him kindly and explained Rome's current situation, who they served, and that the only way to earn freedom was to defeat Domitian. A desire for freedom began to take root in Kwame's heart. After training, Kwame spotted his mother hiding in a corner. His roommate helped keep watch. Kwame never expected to see her here. But before they could talk, she quickly told him his sisters were safe and that she would find a way for them to reunite. At that moment, guards approached, forcing his mother to leave in a hurry, leaving Kwame only longing for more. But as a gladiator, he wasn't just training, he would soon have to risk his life to entertain tens of thousands of spectators. The gladiator team's routine job was to fight before the chariot races. Usually, it was a duel between one of their own and a massive undefeated giant. Just looking at the giant's massive build was enough to know his terrifying strength. Anyone chosen to fight him was essentially handed a death sentence. The unlucky fighter that day was a short man, also one of Kwame's teammates. No one had the right to refuse the arena, and through this fight, Kwame realized just how fragile his fate truly was. Soon, the two fighters stepped into the arena, ready to deliver their performance for the crowd. Everyone knew the short man stood no chance. Kwame could only watch helplessly. And just as expected, after only a few exchanges, the crowd erupted in excitement. The dwarf's leg was severed, then his arm, and finally his neck met the same fate. The more brutal the scene became, the louder the arena roared. When the giant walked in, he even mocked Kwame's tiny frame. Afterwards, Kwame and his roommate were tasked with collecting their friend's remains. They had promised to cremate him on the western mountain. As Kwame entered the arena, he remained silent. At that moment, he understood how small he truly was compared to the brutality surrounding him. Quietly, he carried his friend's body up to the battlement for cremation, fulfilling the fallen man's last wish. But soon enough, the next event arrived, a spectacle held to celebrate the new Roman emperor's wedding. Once again, the giant would fight, and this time Kwame could no longer escape his fate. The bad news: Kwame was chosen to fight. The good news, if it could be called that, was that he wouldn't die alone. 2 other men were chosen as well. But that wasn't comforting at all. Kwame knew his fate and was devastated by the news. His mother, upon hearing this, rushed to her patron for help. But nothing could be changed. In Rome, not even a king could intervene. The most he could do was give her permission to see Kwame one last time. After a very long wait, Kwame finally met his mother. He didn't know if this would be the last time. His heart was full of fear and anxiety. But his mother comforted him, reminding him that on the day he was born, his father said he would grow up to become the Lion King. Now, she believed he would become great and that he was unbeatable. She told him to fight with the promise that they would meet again. Her words moved Kwame deeply. It gave him confidence, but in the Roman arena, confidence was never enough. As Kwame stepped into the arena, his mother collapsed emotionally. Though it was 3 against 1, the 3 gladiators had their legs chained together, eliminating Kwame's only advantage, speed. The outcome was predictable. After only a few rounds, both of his companions were slaughtered. The bloodier it became, the louder the Romans roared. Standing before the giant, Kwame was outmatched in both strength and skill. Just as the giant was about to finish him, a miracle happened. The volcano erupted, shaking the entire city. As the ground shook violently, Kwame seized the chance to break free from the chains. The scene was so brutal that the emperor's new bride covered her eyes. The entire arena roared Kwame's name, enraging the giant even more. Kwame could barely withstand his overwhelming power. And at that moment, another miracle happened. The ground shook again, allowing Kwame to dodge yet another fatal blow. Once the shaking weakened, he seized the chance. As the giant charged at him, Kwame skillfully drove his staff into the giant's abdomen. But the monster was too strong, his skin thick like armor. The wound meant nothing, and the giant immediately grabbed his sharp sword again. Kwame rose again like a lion, leaping toward the giant, aiming for his head, but it wasn't nearly that simple. The giant blocked effortlessly, sending Kwame crashing to the ground. He slowly walked closer and delivered a brutal kick, knocking Kwame unconscious. His mother, watching helplessly, cried until her eyes were swollen. The giant raised his sword for the killing blow, but the entire arena shouted in unison, begging for Kwame's life. The giant lifted his blade toward the royal box, awaiting the king's judgment. Domitian stood and pointed his thumb downward, execution, but the crowd erupted in protest. Whether to please the Romans or because he was genuinely moved by Kwame's spirit, the king turned his thumb upward. The arena exploded in cheers. And amidst that roaring applause, Kwame miraculously survived once more. The giant was furious. He removed his helmet to glare at Kwame but ultimately had no choice but to let him go. Kwame's mother and sister witnessed the moment and burst into tears of relief. In the end, Kwame survived and received his reward. The king handed the giant a generous bag of money, and the giant bowed gratefully to both the king and queen. When it was Kwame's turn, the king purposely told his brother to present the reward. The prince felt insulted, forced to honor someone he viewed as a loser, but he had no choice. Just as he reached out with the bag of coins, the royal stands began shaking. Mount Vesuvius had erupted. The eruption threw the entire stadium into panic. People scrambled to escape, while Kwame and the White Lion felt the trembling deep beneath their feet. That eruption wiped out multiple Roman cities overnight. After his near-death experience, Kwame was locked up. Domitian controlled all gladiators and despised him, ordering guards not to feed him. Kwame starved the entire day until his roommate snuck food in after bribing the guard. His roommate told him the harsh truth. Kwame survived by luck this time, but next time there would be no miracle. He had only 5 days left to live. Kwame thanked him, saying every day he lived was a gift from the heavens, and whatever was meant to happen would happen. The rematch between Kwame and the giant was officially set. Kwame's mother couldn't sit still. Once she learned the fight would be held the next day, she rushed to a perfume vendor to buy a poison strong enough to kill a horse. She secretly hired a group of guards, snuck into the giant's chamber, and slipped the poison into his drink. The next day, the gladiator battle began. Kwame, exhausted from days without food, could barely stand. The first thing the giant did upon waking was drink the poisoned wine. In the arena, the king ordered Kwame to wear armor, clearly trying to protect him, but Kwame's greatest advantage was agility. Once he wore armor, his movement would be restricted, and he had never trained in heavy gear before. It was a major disadvantage. When they entered the arena, the entire crowd erupted with excitement. Kwame, now familiar with this battleground, kissed the sand as his ritual. But during the first few exchanges, he couldn't land a single attack. The giant effortlessly countered everything. Kwame fell hard, mocked by the giant as the Romans chanted the monster's name, but right before the fatal blow, Kwame struck back with lightning speed, knocking off the giant's helmet. Kwame removed his own helmet and studied the giant. The beast began to sway. The poison had finally kicked in. The Romans started chanting Lion Hunter, and even Domitian sensed something was wrong. Kwame launched his attack. The giant, no longer fully conscious, barely parried a few strikes before Kwame's blade sank into his abdomen, but for a monster like him, it was far from fatal. The giant still managed to hit Kwame hard, knocking him down again. Kwame raised his shield but was quickly overwhelmed. Suddenly, Kwame saw his opening. The entire arena shouted his name, and he didn't disappoint. With a swift move, he slashed the giant's shoulder. Seeing blood, Kwame smiled. He finally understood. The giant was human, and therefore beatable. Kwame danced around the giant, striking again and again, leaving deep wounds across the monster's body. Domitian's eyes widened. Kwame's mother burst into tears of relief. Moments later, the giant collapsed, defeated. The arena exploded. This victory felt greater than winning an Olympic crown. Domitian stormed away. The nameless slave had now tasted true glory. The Romans cheered wildly as Kwame was crowned the arena's new champion. After this victory, Kwame sought freedom under arena law. If a slave survived long enough, he could earn his release, choose to leave or stay as a paid gladiator, and be honored by the people. But Kwame no longer wanted to be a gladiator. He wanted to leave, and the only protest he had was to starve himself. When Domitian found out, he devised something cruel. He brought a bow and arrow before Kwame and aimed at his roommate, the person closest to him. If Kwame agreed to eat and keep entertaining Rome, his friend would live. If he refused, the arrow would be released. With no choice, Kwame swallowed the humiliating meal. His chains tightened once again. That very day, the Roman arena held an event more spectacular than ever seen before, a wild artistic performance with hundreds of birds released into the sky, stunning the entire crowd. After that, the gladiators entered the arena accompanied by rare exotic animals. Unexpectedly, Kwame spotted his sister. He thought she had been forced into becoming a gladiator, but she had volunteered herself. Before Kwame could react, the performance resumed, and the brutality of Rome revealed itself once again. Water flooded into the arena, transforming it into a massive sea, a spectacle more magnificent than any Olympic show. At that moment, the gates opened and a ship slowly sailed in. Tied to the front of the ship was Domitian's lover. He ended up like this because he knew too much. To silence him, Domitian forced his own lover into this spectacle. Among the performers was also a Roman consul. They soon realized the ship was leaking. Then another gate opened, releasing two massive beasts. The Romans were thrilled, and even the king approved of Domitian's deadly setup. The creatures attacked immediately. Domitian's lover was decapitated on the spot. Water rushed into the ship as crocodiles lunged up and dragged the consul under. But that was only a prelude to the true spectacle. When the white lion was released, it went berserk. It attacked gladiators non-stop, and with every leap, another body fell. The scene was terrifying. As if the arena didn't provide enough prey, the lion leapt into the stands and mauled anyone it encountered. Kwame and his sister shouted at the beast. When the lion saw Kwame, it recognized him, the man who had captured it. The lion growled and charged straight at him. The size difference alone was overwhelming. Even though Kwame once defeated a giant, facing this lion was far more terrifying. He was quickly overpowered. After several brutal exchanges, Kwame was exhausted and covered in wounds, but in a final burst of will, he drove his blade into the lion's heart as it lunged at him. When the lion's body was carried away, the crowd realized Kwame was still alive. The Romans erupted in excitement, chanting his name and calling him the Lion King. Kwame believed this victory would earn him freedom, but freedom came at a far higher cost. Kwame and his friend were brought into the arena. The Romans screamed for blood, wanting them to kill each other, but neither man could lift his weapon. Then two gates opened. Kwame's sister appeared from one side, and his friend's young son from the other. They were trapped in an impossible dilemma. They had no choice but to fight, because only the winner's family would be spared. The battle for their loved ones began. Neither wanted to strike, but both were forced into combat. Eventually, Kwame wounded his friend and begged the king for mercy. The Romans shouted for clemency, but the king showed no compassion. He turned his thumb downward. Execution. There was no escaping it. Kwame's friend was doomed. Before dying, he begged Kwame to protect his son, then stepped toward the blade himself. He knew that if Kwame didn't strike, all of them would die. He chose to sacrifice himself to save the others. Nearly the entire arena began chanting, "Release Kwame." The king descended into the arena holding a wooden sword. In front of everyone, he declared Kwame a free man, now a Roman citizen. After Kwame received the wooden sword, the king told him he could choose anyone to free. This was his new authority, and Kwame didn't hesitate to hand the wooden sword to his sister. In that moment, all three siblings were officially free. Kwame's journey in Rome finally came to an end. He had tasted the glory of a gladiator, but at a cost far greater than anyone knew. His sisters, however, became entangled in a complicated struggle for power. As mentioned, it was the year 79 AD, during the reign of Emperor Vespasian. Every time the arena held chariot races, Vespasian would dress in new garments to attend. In a secret location, there was a betting chamber run by a man named Tenax. He grew up in the shadows and gradually built power for himself. Kobo, the blue team's gladiator, was trained by Tenax. Many gamblers here lost so badly they barely kept their clothes. One noble even consulted a fortune teller, unaware it was all part of Tenax's scheme. Following the prophecy, the noble wagered an ancient book. Tenax had coveted it for a long time, proving it was no ordinary text. With everything set, Vespasian arrived at the arena with his youngest son, where the seats were packed. The Roman arena was enormous. Vespasian waved to the crowd. A heavy-set announcer stepped forward to introduce the teams. There were four: the white team led by Sidon, fully equipped and impressive; Kobo representing the blue team from Olympia, clearly a crowd favorite, followed by the red and light blue teams. When the handkerchief dropped, the gates opened and all teams burst forward. As expected, Kobo's and Sidon's horses took the lead. After one lap, a dangerous moment happened. A wheel flew off and nearly hit Kobo. The chariot behind him wasn't so lucky and shattered completely. Workers rushed to clear the wreckage, but one soldier staggered to his feet. At that moment, the chariots looped back and charged toward him. No one could survive such an impact. Sidon maintained the lead while Kobo lagged behind. Just when everyone thought he was finished, something unexpected happened. Meanwhile, Vespasian's eldest son arrived late. Though he oversaw the military, he had no interest in the races. His lack of respect angered his father, revealing deep tensions within the imperial family. Back in the arena, Kobo approached a sharp turn. The red and light blue teams weren't pushing hard, but the real spectacle was yet to come. Decorative fish structures high above sprayed water, adding tension to the moment. Kobo whipped his horses, accelerating dramatically. He quickly overtook the red team, then the light blue. At the next turn, Kobo caught up to the white team, and in the final moment, shockingly overtook Sidon. Kobo won the entire race. The happiest man was Tenax, who earned a fortune, while the noble who trusted the fortune teller collapsed in tears, having lost everything. Vespasian rose to leave. When his eldest attempted to explain his earlier behavior, the emperor silenced him, ordering him to speak privately. Such reprimands were not meant for the public. The younger son smirked triumphantly, showing the hostility between the brothers. After the crowd dispersed, Tenax entered the gambling chamber and handed a bag of coins to the fortune teller, confirming she had been bribed from the start. The devastated noble also lost his lover. Kobo silently watched his fallen teammates, fully aware that next time, he might be the one lying on the ground. Meanwhile, Vespasian scolded his son for failing to handle the Jewish uprising in time. What angered Vespasian even more was that his eldest son was sleeping with a Jewish woman. The emperor repeatedly ordered him to send her away, but the prince didn't realize how dangerous she truly was. At the labor camp, the Jewish queen entered with a veil covering her face, asking the elders whether Rome had delivered food supplies. News came that only a small amount of food had been delivered, far from enough. The queen insisted that even Rome lacked provisions, but the elder didn't believe her, claiming her love for the Roman prince had made her betray her people. Meanwhile, the prince received shocking news. Vespasian had no intention of naming him heir, instead favoring his younger brother. Vespasian was wise. He couldn't say this openly or the two brothers would fight, so he simply said the prince could be heir, as long as he obeyed orders. And the first order, influenced by the Jewish queen, was for the prince to banish her from Rome. Back at the Roman arena, Kobo inspected the ruined chariot and discovered a sabotaged axle pin, proving his teammate's death was no accident. With this clue, he immediately sought out Tenax. Tenax was storing his winnings and land deeds inside a secret vault, which was filled with property contracts from across Rome. Tenax collected so much land because he had a greater ambition, to seize the Roman throne. He suddenly noticed a familiar bronze statue in the room, immediately putting him on alert. Just then, Kobo knocked on the door. Tenax hid the fact someone had broken in as Kobo presented the sabotaged pin. Tenax told Kobo they had a much bigger plan, one that might make them emperors, just as Vespasian, once a simple mule herder, had risen to the throne. But Kobo didn't care about the crown, he only wanted to survive. He also noticed the bronze statue, its horse strikingly similar to the ones from his homeland. Tenax snatched the statue away and dismissed Kobo, telling him to rest. As he left, Kobo warned that someone was plotting against them. Tenax promised to look into it. That night, Tenax dragged the chariot mechanic out of bed. His wife and daughter watched in fear. Tenax showed him the pin and demanded to know who ordered him. The mechanic denied everything, so Tenax pulled out a knife. His daughter burst into tears and confessed it was a red-haired man, someone still in the tavern. Tenax slapped the mechanic's cheek, telling him his daughter just saved his life. Right after, Tenax went to the inn to confront the red-haired man. Everyone tensed when they saw him. Tenax stepped closer, telling them he was the true master of this place and demanded to know who ordered them to sabotage his gladiator. The red-haired man trembled with fear but tried to act tough. He said he knew exactly who Tenax was, but claimed he came from a land more powerful than Rome itself. Tenax still hadn't identified the mastermind, so he didn't touch the man. He simply smiled and walked away. The red-haired man felt triumphant, believing his threats had scared Tenax, unaware that Tenax retreated only to observe him in secret. The next afternoon, Kobo returned to the arena as promised to test the new horses. Once he stepped onto the chariot, he sped forward. The 4 white horses were incredible, just a slight command and they flew across the track. Kobo was amazed by their unmatched speed. After one lap, he was determined to buy them. But there was one condition. He wanted the 3 brothers to stay and help tend the horses. The 2 older brothers were delighted, but Belet, the youngest, refused. Belet reminded them they had promised their father to return home after selling the horses. Now that the deal was done, they should go back because their parents were waiting. But his 2 older brothers knew this was their best chance to rise, so they urged Belet to stay and witness the most chaotic year of the Roman Empire. Belet stormed off angrily. The 2 older brothers agreed with Kobo that they would remain. After shaking hands, Kobo rushed straight to Tenax. Naturally, he came to collect payment from Tenax, telling him these were the fastest horses he had ever ridden. Tenax wasn't stingy at all. Good horses brought good profit. With these new horses, his plan could finally begin. Tenax took the land deeds to the consul's residence. He knew many powerful Romans coveted those properties, and the consul was one of them. After confirming the deeds were real, Tenax offered them for 700,000 coins. The consul laughed, saying they weren't worth that much. Tenax, a master negotiator, raised his offer to 800,000. The consul promptly dismissed him, refusing to negotiate further. But as Tenax walked away, he said, "Perhaps the white team will need these deeds more." Hearing this, the consul immediately changed his attitude and called him back. They settled on 900,000. Tenax then left and went to meet Vespasian's youngest son. Tenax asked the prince to dismiss his guards and declared he needed money, a lot of it. Tenax knew the prince was desperate for money because he gambled constantly and always lost. The prince asked why Tenax wasn't afraid he might kill him. Tenax calmly replied that he had come prepared. Tenax revealed the plan. Kobo wanted to leave the blue team, and together they would form a new team. Hearing that Kobo would lead the new team, the prince immediately agreed. He knew Kobo's capabilities. But Tenax added that forming the new team required imperial authorization, and those papers had to come from the prince. In return, the prince would receive half the ownership and enjoy all benefits of the team. The prince cared most about the horses. Tenax guaranteed they had the best horses, and with Kobo as the driver, they would never lose. The prince was completely convinced, though he warned Tenax that if this was a trick, he would personally take his head. But right then, something shocking happened in the stables. All of Tenax's white horses collapsed, dying. At that same moment, Bled had packed his bags and planned to leave Rome the next day. His brothers continued persuading him. They had food, shelter, women, and the chance to work with their idol. But Bled didn't care. He remembered the promise he made to his father. After selling the horses, he must return home. While they were still talking, someone came running to get them. The three brothers entered the stables and froze. The white horses were dying, clearly poisoned. Kobo's plan to leave the blue team had definitely leaked, and this was a brutal act of revenge. Tenax also received the news and quickly brought Kobo to meet the horse owner. While they were still stunned, a subordinate delivered even worse news. Domitian, the emperor's youngest son, was coming in person to inspect the warhorses Tenax had bragged about. Unfortunately, the white horses were lying all over the ground, dying. Tenax warned the three brothers to quickly come up with a way to handle the situation. When Domitian arrived, they had to cover it up somehow. They lifted all the curtains and began hoisting the horses up to fake the scene. Tenax tried to stall Domitian outside, but he ignored him and walked straight into the stable. Seeing the horses being lifted, Domitian asked what was going on. They claimed they were repairing the horses' hooves. Domitian didn't question it. He only told Kobo he wanted to see the horses run in the arena tomorrow, then left. The pressure on Tenax intensified. Tenax asked Kobo if he had told anyone. Kobo said the horse trainer was also present. He might have leaked the information. Tenax realized their security had failed. He ordered Kobo and the eldest brother to find a way to save the horses before tomorrow. Tenax then took his men to see the apothecary, who might have sold the poison. The apothecary admitted someone had indeed purchased toxic herbs from him. Tenax tracked the buyers to an alley and captured them, keeping only one alive. The survivor claimed he didn't know the mastermind, only that the dead man had once received a letter from a messenger carrying a green and yellow palanquin. With this clue, Tenax let the man go. Returning to the stables, Tenax found that one horse had died. The veterinarian was desperately trying to save the others. Tenax ordered his men to investigate every faction in Rome to see if any other stables were targeted. 2 Italian merchants were also waiting in the stable. The middle brother quietly told Bled to pack his things and leave Rome tonight with their eldest brother, but unexpectedly, Bled insisted on staying. Now that trouble had struck, this was when they were needed most. The middle brother also decided to stay, recalling how he recently helped a mother and her son on the road and gave the boy an apple. They both looked striking and noble. The scene cuts to Rome's marketplace where the 2 boys spotted the green-yellow palanquin and followed it to the slave market, then rushed to report to Tenax. At the slave market was a familiar figure, Kwame's mother, who had just recovered the money stolen from her the previous night. When the auction began, she panicked as her youngest daughter's price skyrocketed to 10 times the usual amount. She tried to bid 500 coins, but the person in the palanquin offered 3,000, far beyond what she could pay. She could only watch helplessly as her youngest daughter was taken away, but she couldn't leave. Her eldest daughter was about to be auctioned too. Unexpectedly, Tenax placed a 500 coin bid for the elder daughter. The mother tried to raise it to 1,000, but the auctioneer refused because Tenax was interested. Even though she offered more, her daughter was still taken by Tenax. She ran after them, hoping to buy her back, but Tenax was not someone who needed money. Why did Tenax buy the elder daughter? Because he had observed that the person in the palanquin who bought the younger sister was actually related to her. Tenax intended to use the elder sister as an informant to discover that buyer's identity. Late at night, Kwame's mother knocked on Tenax's door. Because of the bronze statue incident, Tenax was wary, but he let her in once he recognized her. He stated his demand. He needed to know who the woman in the palanquin was, the one who bought her younger daughter. That was the person he wanted to investigate. If they could extract information through the younger daughter, he would release them and restore their freedom. Kwame's mother knew this was the only way to survive. She agreed to spy for Tenax but made one condition: she and her daughter must not be mistreated while staying under his control. Tenax had no interest in slaves, so he promised he wouldn't lay a hand on them. After saying that, he let them sleep in the guest room and shut his bedroom door. In 79 AD, Emperor Vespasian knew his end was near and began preparing for succession. What worried him most was the threat of usurpation, so he summoned his two sons to discuss the state of Rome. He feared not external enemies but internal factions. Therefore, he made it clear that when he died, the next emperor of Rome would be his eldest son, Titus. Domitian had anticipated this, but hearing it aloud still filled him with jealousy. This moment would later fuel his ambition to seize the throne. The next day, Kobo and Belet's older brother went to the foot of the volcano to collect sulfur. After gathering it, they returned immediately and fed it to the horses, hoping for a miracle. The next morning, Kwame's mother was given instructions by Tenax's servant. She had to go to the consul's house, where her youngest daughter had been taken. She met the girl and quietly advised her, since she now worked as Tenax's spy. The daughter felt reassured seeing her mother move freely. After a night of waiting, they finally received good news at dawn. The last white horses had recovered. The three brothers were overjoyed and immediately sent word to Kobo, who rushed to the arena mid-breakfast. The brothers were test-driving the chariot when Kobo arrived. Tenax confirmed the horses were healthy and announced they would form a new team, meaning the three brothers were officially recruited. Meanwhile, Kwame's youngest sister, now living in the consul's home, was brought into his chambers. She secretly overheard the consul and his mistress discussing a plot. They planned to assassinate a man known as Kobo. When the consul entered, she revealed a smear of red, making them believe she was on her menstrual cycle. This was a plan devised by her mother to protect her from abuse. Late at night, she escaped the consul's house and ran to Tenax's home, where her mother and sister were waiting. She told Tenax about the plot to kill someone named Kobo. Tenax immediately understood and warned them to stay hidden and avoid attention. But could Tenax save Kobo in time? It seemed he was already one step too late. Kobo was being attacked at that very moment. Within seconds, Kobo was overpowered. In front of numerous witnesses, the attackers stabbed him in the abdomen and dragged him away. Everyone watching knew he was as good as dead. The blue team fell into chaos after losing their star racer. They approached Sidon from the white team and offered him 800,000 coins to switch sides. The amount was enormous, so Sidon accepted, but demanded protection from Anton. The following day, the war drums sounded, signaling an intense race ahead. Domitian entered his father's chamber and found him standing weakly on the balcony. Vespasian was delirious and too ill to attend the arena. This time, Titus arrived early. Seeing his father unable to appear, he seated himself upon the emperor's throne. Domitian was furious but hid it, especially because Titus had caught him stealing from the imperial treasury the previous day to fund his gambling. Today, due to Sidon's sudden departure, the white team fell apart. Not only had Sidon vanished, but their chariot was also missing, infuriating Anton. At the same time, Antonio confronted the consul for stealing his gladiator, but the consul dismissed him. He was the one in power and couldn't care less. One more detail: since the consul had purchased the deeds from Tenax, he now had the right to sit in the front row. These seats weren't chosen at random, they were strictly assigned by social rank. At that moment, no one expected Tenax to appear on the grandstand. Even though he wasn't accompanied by noblewomen but by a few children, his aristocratic presence still drew everyone's attention. In the arena, the announcer was introducing the competitors. No one expected the first name to be Sidon. The moment Antonio saw Sidon and his chariot, he immediately recognized it as his own stolen chariot. The next person to enter was Kobo. Everyone thought he had been assassinated the night before, so his appearance stunned the entire arena. The crowd was shocked, especially the consul, who couldn't believe Kobo was still alive. In the betting hall, people rushed to place their money on Kobo. Kwame's mother didn't miss the chance either. She bet all 1,000 coins she had on Kobo, knowing Tenax's entire scheme. Watching through the window slit, she followed the race. Kobo was clever, staying right behind Sidon from the blue team. On the final lap, Kobo from the gold team overtook Sidon at a tight corner. The entire crowd held its breath, even Kwame's mother was trembling. In the final moment, Kobo won by a narrow margin. Some celebrated, while others suffered. The consul, despite all his planning, ended up losing everything. Tenax openly collected his winnings, provoking fury from both the white team and the blue team. Back at the betting hall, Kwame's mother waited for Tenax. She placed 2,000 coins before him, hoping to buy back her eldest daughter, but Tenax refused, saying he would decide the price. She grew nervous, but Tenax instead offered her a position. If she worked for him for 1 year, earning 1,500 coins, she could redeem her daughter, and even save 500 coins. It was surprisingly generous. And so, her eldest daughter was freed, but chaos erupted outside because the appearance of a fifth faction, the Gold Team, broke the long-standing balance of 4. Tenax didn't care about the riot, he simply ordered his men to contain it and left. But how could the riot end easily when so many had lost their fortunes? That night, Titus was summoned to the palace. Vespasian was near death. By the time his sons arrived, he had already passed away, standing upright, as he wished, because a Roman emperor must die on his feet. The reign of Vespasian had ended. After Vespasian's death, Titus ascended the throne. With military power behind him, no noble dared oppose him. The 4 great families negotiated with Titus, demanding that he deify his father like Julius Caesar, making him the 4th emperor to be immortalized. The consul agreed, but in return demanded that the Gold Team be banned from competing, claiming the riots had been triggered by their participation. While Tenax was celebrating the new Gold Team banner hanging over his stables, soldiers arrived, tore it down, and announced that the Gold Team was officially banned. The situation shifted instantly. No one was more shaken than Kobo. Without the right to compete, he would lose everything. Seeing Tenax's downfall, Kobo immediately declared he was leaving the Gold Team. While Tenax was trying to convince Kobo he would regain their right to compete, Antonio from the White Team stormed in. He slashed the yellow paint on the chariot, revealing the white underneath, then immediately took both chariots away. Tenax could only glare helplessly. At least they didn't accuse him of theft. Antonio wouldn't dare file a complaint either. The chariots were gone, nothing left to argue. Kobo realized there was no chance of recovery and walked away from Tenax. But would Tenax abandon the Gold Team? Absolutely not, he was far too ambitious for that. First, he went to Domitian for answers. Domitian revealed that his older brother and the 4 major families had made a pact, but he claimed he had a way for the Gold Team to compete again. Tenax then visited the chariot builder to check on the fastest war chariot. The blacksmith said he had crafted one out of bamboo, making it incredibly fast, but too light to pass inspection. Tenax told him to keep building, he would handle the approval. After his father was deified, Titus officially became emperor. He declared that while his father built the world's greatest amphitheater, he would build the world's largest canal, bringing Red Sea water into Rome so every Roman could drink and bathe freely. And who would build it? Of course, the Jewish people. Therefore, the Jewish queen protested, accusing Titus of breaking his promise to free her people, instead forcing them into even more labor. She was deeply disappointed. After she left, Titus's advisor told him he had already made 2 mistakes, caring too much for his mistress and being too lenient with his younger brother. Titus knew the recent riot had been Domitian's doing, but he still didn't realize his brother was capable of far greater horrors. Domitian, furious at not being chosen as heir, ordered the blockade of supply ships carrying food to the front lines, leaving soldiers to starve. This enraged Titus, but without evidence, he could only place his brother under temporary house arrest. Even under confinement, Domitian continued scheming behind the scenes. The consul visited Domitian to present wild beasts gathered from across the world. None of them impressed Domitian until the white lion was revealed. The consul said it was the fiercest beast he had ever encountered, capable of devouring a man in a single strike. At the mention of the lion, Domitian immediately grew excited. He wanted to see this king of beasts with his own eyes, a creature he believed came from hell to devour the innocent. He disguised himself to escape Titus's surveillance and snuck into the beast enclosure. The moment he saw the white lion, a sinister plan formed in his mind. The scene shifts to Tenax returning to his betting hall, where he saw Kwame's mother helping manage the place. He quietly observed her and realized she had genuine talent. Profits had risen significantly. That day, Domitian sought out Tenax, asking him to eliminate a few people. Since Lucas had secretly carried out the blockade under Domitian's orders, he feared Titus would uncover the truth, so he needed witnesses removed. Lucas was arrested and interrogated about everyone involved, and all of them were promptly eliminated by Tenax's men. Domitian also learned an important detail from his lover. Titus's mistress was hated among her own people. Many Jews believed their queen had betrayed them to earn Titus's favor. So Domitian devised a plan of division and manipulation. He had all the Jewish children seized and told their parents that if they didn't cooperate, their children would die. This led to the horrifying scene of the white lion devouring a Jewish man, making everyone believe their queen had betrayed her own people. The white lion normally wouldn't attack humans. The trainer had to shout at the Jewish prisoners, reminding them of their children and forcing them to charge forward. A brutal scene unfolded. The white lion killed the man instantly, infuriating Titus. He ordered the guards to intervene. Titus knew immediately that Domitian had orchestrated everything and went to confront his brother, intending to punish him. But Domitian was cunning. He knew Titus wouldn't kill him, so he pressed a dagger to his own chest, forcing Titus to hesitate. Titus couldn't do it, and the moment slipped away. All of this was only the beginning. The scene shifts to Kobo. After leaving Tenax, he began searching for a new team. The blue team already had Sidon, so they refused to take Kobo back. Kobo approached the remaining teams, but the green and red teams were merely side players. They had no desire to win, since their real income came from deliberately losing. Only the white team remained. With no bargaining power left, Kobo was forced to join them for 600,000 coins. He had no other option. When Tenax happily informed him they could re-enter the arena, Kobo had already signed with the white team. Tenax was disappointed but wished him luck. From this point on, the two old friends would become rivals. The man who previously placed the bronze statue in Tenax's room appeared again and beat him badly. It turned out that both he and Tenax had been orphans raised by a cruel man, a deranged monster. They had burned the man alive, but the fire spread and separated them. Tenax escaped to Rome, while his friend was caught and took the blame for everything. Now, having escaped prison, he had returned to make Tenax pay. The next morning, Kwame's mother found a note demanding that Tenax bring all his racing winnings to a secret location. Tenax was furious. He knew he had to eliminate this man, or he'd never know peace, but finding him in Rome was no simple task. His mistake was sending a young boy to scout for a man with a scar. The boy was tailed the moment he entered the street and was murdered. His body was dumped in front of Tenax's stables as a warning. Some debts demand to be paid. In the next race, Kobo lost and placed third. Tenax had predicted this, so he bet on Sidon instead. Sidon mocked him, saying Kobo was riding weak horses and no amount of skill could save him. Kobo was infuriated. It must be said, powerful forces were manipulating everything from the shadows. First was the woman humiliated by the consul. She sought out Livia, the woman whose husband had gambled away her contract to Tenax. Now she had nowhere else to go. The woman told Livia she had a way to legally reclaim her contracts, since her husband had taken them without her knowledge. So Livia took her child and left the small inn where Belet's second brother had been sheltering them. So what was Livia's husband doing now? After losing everything, he had been wandering aimlessly, until fate found him. The Jewish queen appeared before him. Although her feelings for Titus were real, Roman law forbade the emperor from marrying a foreigner, meaning she could never become the empress of Rome. But she sought out Livia's husband for another reason. Tenax and Domitian had a secret connection, and she needed a spy. If he worked for Tenax and fed her information, she would help him recover his lost contracts. Livia's husband acted as if reborn and begged Tenax to take him in, willing to do any kind of work. Tenax agreed partly out of respect for Kwame's mother. Meanwhile, the consul felt it was the perfect time to set his plan in motion. Kwame's younger sister overheard the plot and rushed to report everything to Tenax. Tenax went to Domitian and relayed what he had learned. The consul had secretly conspired with the high priest. Tenax believed that giving this information to Titus would help them regain his trust. Domitian immediately sought out Titus and relayed the conspiracy. They rode straight to the meeting place. The consul, dressed in a priest's cloak, entered the Pantheon, where refugees prayed endlessly outside. Tenax had bribed the guards so they could sneak in through the back entrance and hear everything clearly. The consul told the senators and priests that Rome would soon have a new king, justifying a coup by claiming Titus shared a bed with a Jewish woman. The moment he invoked the Jewish god, the priests erupted in anger, stomping their feet in protest. Titus heard everything. He stepped out and immediately ordered the guards to arrest everyone present and suppress the rumors. It was an impulsive move, and Titus's advisors tried to warn him, but Domitian stopped them. They stormed the hall and arrested the consul on the spot. The arrest was effective and timely, restoring Titus's trust in Domitian. He believed his brother wouldn't betray him. Because of this, Domitian allowed Tenax to restore the gold team. To control the arena and profit from it, Tenax needed Kobo back. Knowing Kobo wouldn't return willingly, Tenax conspired with the betting house to accuse him of theft. Even though Kobo had won his match, he was still arrested. Tenax visited him in prison and pressured him to rejoin the team. Kobo knew Tenax had orchestrated everything, but he had no choice but to agree. Tenax sent two racers this time. Kobo and Belet's older brother. Belet's brother, inexperienced, crashed his chariot, but Kobo, riding the fastest white horse with the lightest bamboo chariot, was unstoppable. Thanks to Kobo, Tenax finally secured victory. Titus, in truth, already knew Domitian was the force behind the gold team. When Tenax walked into his gambling hall, he saw a familiar bronze statue wrapped in a piece of paper. He asked Kwame's mother to read it aloud. It was a warning, demanding that Tenax hand over all the winnings he owed, or else the next victim would be the man's wife or children. At that moment, Domitian's servant arrived, summoning Tenax. Domitian wanted his cut. Even though Tenax said many nobles still owed money, Domitian refused to wait and demanded payment by the next morning. But Domitian wasn't the only one demanding money. Kobo wanted his share after winning. Anton from the white team also demanded that Tenax return Kobo to them. This pushed Tenax over the edge. He shouted at Anton, saying they owed him nothing and warned him not to push further. After collecting all the gambling profits, Tenax locked the money in a room and screamed in frustration, "No one wants to hand over that much money." That night, the scarred man finally appeared. A boy hiding nearby saw him and ran to alert Tenax. When Tenax arrived with his men, the scarred man wasn't afraid at all. He slipped into a dark alley. Tenax followed him into a room upstairs, and realized too late he had walked into a trap. His own men had been bribed. Tenax tried to attack the traitor but was too weak. The scarred man killed the traitor instantly and brutally beat Tenax, breaking his leg. He didn't kill Tenax, he wanted Tenax to feel what it was like to burn alive, just as he once did. Luckily, the boy witnessed everything and rescued Tenax before the fire consumed him. By the time Kwame's mother arrived, Tenax was already unconscious. The next day, a new race began, but the gold team shocked everyone. Their star racer, Kobo, didn't show up. Bellet's older brother replaced him, and surprisingly, they still won. Andus took the lead, while children ran around taking bets, a new money-making system created by Kwame's mother, and it worked brilliantly. So what exactly happened to Kobo? The night before, Sidon invited Kobo out for drinks. Kobo was distracted by a woman, and meanwhile, the consul's wife, wanting the blue team to win, slipped a scorpion into Kobo's clothes while he slept. He was poisoned. When Kobo woke up, the race horn was already sounding. Realizing his career was in danger, he rushed to Tenax to explain he had been sabotaged. But Tenax's leg was still broken, and Kwame's mother was running the entire betting hall. Tenax finally told Kobo the truth. He had been training new riders because he feared Kobo would one day disappear. That confession enraged Kobo. So what happened to Tenax after the fire? First, the doctor gave him opium for the pain. Tenax knew it was addictive, but without anesthesia, the bone setting would have been unbearable. Kwame's mother also helped hide the fact that Tenax was alive, so the scarred man would believe he was dead, otherwise the revenge would never end. But Domitian didn't care about the rumors. He went straight to Tenax's house, found out Tenax was still alive, and pressed his finger into Tenax's festering wound. He warned him to reclaim the money immediately or he would torture him even more brutally than the scarred man. Tenax had no choice but to agree. Just as Tenax was at a loss, Kwame's mother walked in. The gambling hall had earned a huge sum thanks to the children. Once they heard the code word, they rushed in, each holding 2 bags of coins, today's earnings. Tenax was stunned. He realized this success came entirely from Kwame's mother. But that night, something terrible happened. The scarred man located Tenax's room. Hearing footsteps, Tenax hid in a secret compartment. When the scarred man burst in, he found the room empty. Once the footsteps faded, Tenax emerged, only to see his subordinate's head placed on the bed. He immediately realized Kwame's mother was in danger. Sure enough, Kwame's mother was alone at the gambling hall. The scarred man appeared, grabbed her, and slapped her repeatedly until her lips were swollen. She tried to pull a knife, but it was useless. He knocked her down and began choking her behind the counter. Just as he was about to finish her, he received an unexpected blow. Tenax had rushed from home to save her. From that moment on, Tenax fully trusted Kwame's mother. The next day at the arena, events took another drastic turn. The first to crash was Sidon from the blue team. As Kobo and Andus approached, Kobo clearly had enough space to let Andus avoid Sidon, but he had other intentions. Not wanting anyone to threaten his position, he deliberately steered into Andus. The result? Sidon's legs were crushed, and Andus was thrown out and run over by another chariot. Andus's younger brother rushed over, but it was too late. Andus used his final breath to ask his brothers to love each other, not knowing they would later become enemies. When Kobo entered, Andus's brother attacked him, believing Kobo was responsible for everything. Tenax intervened, insisting it was just an accident and warning them not to seek revenge. But the brothers interpreted it differently. The elder brother wanted to keep serving Tenax, so he held back the younger one and said accidents are part of the arena. Kwame's mother noticed the same thing. Tenax had no sense of justice. Kobo clearly caused the accident, yet Tenax brushed it aside to protect him. From that moment on, she distanced herself from Tenax. Even when he apologized at the funeral, she refused to accept it. Another major event occurred that match. Titus stepped out and announced that his wife was pregnant. Rome finally had an heir. This enraged Domitian, knowing his chance at the throne was slipping away. a new rebellion began brewing in his mind. After burying their older brother, Bled wanted his second brother to leave Tenax and avenge him, but the second brother refused. With the eldest gone, he was now the successor, a rare opportunity, leading to a bitter argument between them. Bled stayed in Rome and sought out the Blue Team. Their former consul had been executed, and his widow now ran the team. Bled volunteered to become their charioteer. With Sidon crippled and the team short-handed, he was accepted immediately. This time, Kobo won his bet. Instead of keeping the money, he gave it to Sidon for treatment, but Sidon revealed something horrifying. He had seen Kobo intentionally cause Andas's crash. Kobo tried to defend himself, but Sidon made the fatal mistake of wanting to report him. For being too honest, Sidon was killed by Kobo, who then pretended to be innocent and called the doctor. Back at the palace, Anton gave Titus a crucial clue in exchange for financial favor. The food blockade had been orchestrated by Domitian. Titus, lacking political instinct, confronted his brother directly. Domitian denied everything, but he knew that once Titus investigated, the truth would surface. So Domitian approached Tenax with a plan to assassinate his brother. Tenax didn't want to get involved, but Domitian understood him too well. If Titus decided to punish his brother, all of Domitian's allies, including Tenax, would die, so it was either help Domitian seize the throne or die with him. Tenax had no choice but to approach a squad leader in the Imperial Guard. The guard captain was smart. He believed Titus had the upper hand and told Tenax to wait until things became clearer. If Domitian failed, he'd punish them immediately. Men like him, double-faced opportunists, were everywhere. The opportunity came quickly during the next race. Kobo's chariot was blocked from the inside by Bled. Bled did it to avenge his brother. Kobo begged for help, but Bled felt nothing. Kobo's chariot flipped, ending his life. It was the karma Kobo deserved, but karma came for Bled's second brother as well, because he was also racing. Bled's second brother was right behind him and couldn't avoid the wreck. Domitian stood up in shock when he saw what was happening. Bled noticed too and immediately stopped his chariot to save his brother, a reckless act with the next lap racing toward them. Bled dragged his brother between the chariots, but it wasn't enough. His brother died in his arms. Bled never imagined that avenging his brother would end up killing his other brother. Now he was the only one left in Rome. This pain would haunt him forever. The price of revenge is heavier than most can bear. In the royal box, Domitian showed clear disappointment. His former arrogance was gone. So what exactly had happened? Titus had uncovered the truth about Domitian blocking the grain shipment. To protect himself, Domitian began plotting to seize the throne and teamed up with Tenax. Tenax contacted a captain of the Imperial Guard, but the man immediately demanded 10 million gold coins. Domitian didn't have that kind of money, and he could no longer access the royal treasury. That left only one option: win it through the chariot races, since Tenax had wagered his entire fortune. Kwame's mother thought Tenax was being reckless, but Tenax said they had no way out. If Domitian failed to become emperor, they would both be buried together. He was betting everything. Tenax knew that even winning the race wouldn't be enough, so he searched for the stash of gold hidden by the scarred man, and he actually found it. At that moment, word spread that Kobo had died in the arena. Tenax panicked because he knew exactly what it meant. Kobo's death meant all their wagered money was gone, making it impossible to bribe the Imperial Guard. Domitian was in despair, until Tenax revealed he had found the hidden gold. The news revived Domitian. He gently sat on the throne, savoring the moment he had waited for all his life. Then Tenax made a critical mistake. He revealed his ambition. He told Domitian he wasn't a subordinate but a partner, and that he wanted noble status. Since Domitian needed him, he agreed without hesitation, promising to grant Tenax a noble title once he became emperor. Tenax delivered the gold to the Imperial Guard, sealing their deal. Bribing them was only the first step. He returned home and opened his secret vault to show Kwame's mother. From that moment, Tenax realized that if he died, these contracts would be more valuable than gold. If the uprising failed, at least Kwame's mother could inherit and manage them. While Tenax was plotting, Livia's husband was busy as well. He confessed everything to the Jewish queen and revealed that Kwame's mother and her youngest daughter were enslaved in the consul's house. The queen went there immediately. But the queen's movements were being watched. Kwame's mother was summoned to the consul's residence, where she saw the queen and the widow. The queen's request was simple. She wanted proof of Domitian's treason. In exchange, Kwame's mother could see her youngest daughter, and the girl would be freed. It was obvious Kwame's mother would choose her daughter. Meanwhile, in the Colosseum, a spectacle unlike anything Rome had ever seen was unfolding. Before the fighters appeared, Tenax staged a wild artistic display, releasing swarms of small birds into the sky. The entire arena was stunned. Then the gladiators entered. As the crowd roared, rare beasts from across the world were released. Tenax then flooded the arena, turning it into a vast sea. The sight was more spectacular than any Olympic display. As the gates opened, a ship sailed in slowly. Tied to its bow was Domitian's lover. He knew too much, so Domitian disposed of him by making him part of the show. The consul was also part of the spectacle. They quickly noticed the ship was leaking. Another gate opened, releasing two massive sea beasts. The Romans erupted with excitement, and surprisingly, Titus accepted his brother's arrangement. The beasts began their attack. Domitian's lover was decapitated in an instant, a brutally horrifying sight. Water seeped into the ship, and a crocodile lunged upward, dragging the consul into the water. The sight terrified the consul's wife so much that she could barely stand, but why was she even inside the arena? To understand this, we return to Kwame's mother. She had taken the Imperial Guard contract from Tenax's secret room and handed it to the Jewish queen. The consul's wife also gave Kwame's mother her youngest daughter, but the entire exchange was a deception. After confirming the contract, the Jewish queen immediately rushed to the arena to find Titus, and the consul's wife followed her. Kwame's mother, meanwhile, was arrested by Roman soldiers while trying to take her daughter home. The consul's wife had never intended to free the girl, she had sold her to the arena. Kwame's mother never saw it coming. Outside the arena, guards refused to let the Jewish queen enter. At that moment, disaster took root. 3 Jewish men saw her there and assumed she intended to assassinate Titus. The consul's wife secretly slipped into the arena and witnessed her husband being devoured by a crocodile. The queen suffered a tragic fate. She never reached Titus and was killed by her own people. After the spectacle, Domitian tried to get Titus alone. His real intention was to have Tenax kill his brother. But at the critical moment, Titus's general burst in with alarming news. He had discovered the truth. Domitian was the mastermind behind the grain blockade. A witness was already on the way to Rome for questioning. If this was true, Titus would be in grave danger. The general refused to leave his side, forcing Domitian to delay his plan. Titus made a fatal mistake by telling Domitian that the witness was approaching Rome. Domitian instantly understood the situation and signaled Tenax to take the back route. As Tenax rushed out, he witnessed the Jewish queen's murder and found the contract on the ground. At that moment, he realized everything was already spiraling beyond control. When he attempted to exit the arena, the Imperial Guard arrived and began searching. They had orders to kill Tenax on sight. This confirmed his suspicion. The guard captain had betrayed him. Titus's men arrived with news. The witness had reached the outskirts of Rome. Titus summoned Domitian to accompany him. Though unwilling, Domitian had no choice. Near Tenax's territory, a deadly duel erupted. Tenax knew his only chance was to eliminate the treacherous guard captain and seize control of the Imperial Guard. Tenax managed to kill the captain. He then approached the remaining guards, telling them their leader was dead, and offering to split 100 million gold coins among them. Greed won instantly. On the outskirts, Titus interrogated the witness and learned that his own brother was the mastermind, but he didn't expect Tenax to arrive with the Imperial Guard. They quickly seized control and assassinated Titus's general. Seeing his general fall, Titus knew everything was lost. He handed his sword to Domitian. Then, turning to the guards, he declared that if they killed his brother, he would pay them 10 times Domitian's bribe. Tenax understood that Domitian had never killed anyone with his own hands. He was hesitating, as always, so Tenax had to act himself. He soaked a flag in water, slipped behind Titus, and strangled him with it. Once Titus stopped breathing, Domitian ordered the guards to withdraw. He told Tenax he was now the commander of the arena, and then he demanded that Titus's death be declared a case of food poisoning. The public must believe it. Domitian immediately returned to Rome, summoned the Senate, and announced his brother's death. He proclaimed himself the new emperor. Those who agreed were to stand, those who didn't would be thrown into the arena like the former consul. The gruesome threat left the senators no choice but to rise in submission, and so Domitian's reign officially began. So what kind of ruler was Domitian in history? Politically, he achieved a lot. Rome's economy, trade, and foreign campaigns were stable, but his end was tragic. His cruelty and countless executions led to his assassination by members of his own household. Legend says his own wife helped carry out the killing. Domitian ruled for 14 years, and after his reign, Rome began its long decline. Even though Tenax became the arena's commander, he died never knowing whether he had truly earned the Roman noble status he spent his entire life chasing. In the end, he had nothing. He was merely a pawn in someone else's game. Here is the complete summary of those about to die. What do you think of the show? How would you rate it out of 10? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for your interest and support. Goodbye and see you again.